Hi chess fans, welcome to Tactics Explained. In this video we will look at 10 positions and you can pause your video to find the best move. And then I will not only tell you the move, but I will also tell you what can be the thinking process you can apply in this position if you didn't know the move. So let's jump right into it. Position number 1, white to move. Let's have a look at this position. Okay, the key to this position is to see that this pawn here is pinned by the bishop. So if we apply some imagination, what function is this pawn performing? It's protecting the pawn on g6. And if we can make use of this, we will be able to see the solution to this position. The best move is knight f6 check, and we are doing the double threat of checking the king and also forking the queen. And also the queen is freed up to take on g6. Black takes with the bishop to eliminate the check. And now we have queen g6 check and the pawn on f7 is pinned. King h8 only move and king h7 mate. Okay, let's have a look at the next position. In this position, black to move. Okay, clearly in this position, black's asset are the two pawns that are close to queening. If black can queen any of these pawns, black will win. So naturally the first candidate move is just promoting this pawn to a queen, but obviously the rook would simply take it. Another motive seems to be that the king does not have so many squares. A lot of squares around the king are taken. So maybe another candidate move might be, might be bishop c5 check. But then the king just takes the pawn and we are not progressing much. Okay, so what can we do to promote these pawns? This bishop is controlling this square and the rook is controlling this file. So maybe one candidate move might be bishop a5, making advantage of the fact that if the bishop would take this pawn, so if we advance the pawn, we could take the rook. We are pinning the bishop. But unfortunately, white has the resource bishop takes. And now h2, the bishop is deflected, the bishop is not here anymore. White has the resource rook f8, check. And if the king moves, this nice motive is very useful to know. The rook is controlling both of the queening squares, and white wins or equalizes. Okay, so the solution to this position is bishop d6, blocking the way for the rook. And after rook takes, the way for the bishop is blocked and black will promote this pawn. Okay, let's have a look at the next position, white to move. Okay, there are two candidate moves. One is queen b7 check, and one is rook takes knight. The key to this position is to be able to calculate one line only, but a very long line. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. So let's have a quick look at queen b7 first. After after knight to c7, white cannot make much progress. Okay, and rook takes d5. Why is this a candidate move? Well, it is a candidate move because it deflects the queen, and the queen is not controlling the a7 square anymore. And we have queen to a7 check, and the queen can also not move in between here. Okay, so to calculate this line, it's very important to know, okay, what options does black have? Black can move only in 3 ways, and the way to calculate this is to eliminate moves quickly. Okay, so the king could, for example, move to c6. But now we have this pin on the queen, pinning the king against the queen, and the king tries to keep contact with the queen, but we can see that we can win the queen. The king has lost contact. Okay, so king to c6 does not work. What about king to c8? Well, that's a mate in one. Okay, and this leaves us, we can eliminate now these two lines, and this leaves us only with king d8. It's a forced move. And now we can give a lot of checks and calculate a forcing line. King b8 makes sense to come as close as possible to the king. King d7, everything is forced, and now rook e8. Okay, so we have calculated forcing moves, and one technique that we used was eliminating moves quickly. One move led to mate, and one move led to winning the queen. And now we are making a move that does not give a check and is not immediately a forcing move, but it is close to it because we are threatening mate with queen c8, checkmate. And once we have reached this, it's useful to see, okay, if I need one move to mate, what moves can black mate to disturb? And the most common moves that black can make is giving checks. So we want to calculate queen takes g5, and then now we have a few options for the king, and we should see that king b1 leads to queen g1 and a perpetual. So rook b1 makes sense because there is no further check for black. And now it's basically forced to move king c5 to prevent the mate. And now we can keep on calculating. So we are now in a very much long line, but the line we can calculate because everything is forcing. Okay, king d8 check, king c6, everything is forced here, queen c8 check, and now not king to d5 because we can win the queen again, but king to b6, king b8, king a6, not king c6 because rook. So again, we are calculating a forcing line by eliminating alternatives. King a6, queen a8, queen a7. If king b6, we have a mate in 2. So again, we eliminate this line. King cannot move to b6, so has to be queen a7, queen c6, king a5, b4, king a4, and queen c3 with mate coming up. Okay, so the challenge to this position was to calculate the long line, and the techniques that we used were to look at all the options that black have and eliminating them quickly by seeing that they lose the queen or they mate. And this is was a difficult position in the way that you had to have the combinational vision to see, okay, I want to take out this knight and then calculate this long line. Okay, let's move to the next position. White to move. Let's have a look at this position. It's a little bit easier. Okay, black has an attack on this rook here. But the black king here, looks a little bit vulnerable. It's pinned with this rook, and the queen has some squares here. All the pieces are kind of ready to jump in here. So this seems to be what's important about this position. So first of all, preventing this double attack, just equalizes and the game goes on. But is there something more? For candid moves, we always want to look at checks. So even like taking queen f7, what happens? Well, after rook f7, nothing much happens. And then what else can we do? Maybe bishop takes e6, but then after bishop takes e6, not much happens. And the rook here cannot move because the queen is on take if the rook moves. And a good candid move is actually to move the rook and see if black now takes the queen. Is there something that we can do? And in fact, in this position, it's a mate in 2, forcing move. So rook g8, king e7 only move, and now knight takes d5 check. So it's useful to see, can I sacrifice a valuable piece? And then after black takes the valuable piece, is there some forcing moves that lead to a mate? Okay, let's move on to position 5. In this position, white to move. Okay, the key for this position is um, rook takes e7, and after king takes, queen b4. And why would this be a candidate move that we consider? Well, first it gives check, and well, it sacrifices the exchange, but it also lures the king into the center. And after queen b4 check, we are actually activating all of our pieces. The rook can move over to e1, the queen can move to b7 to give further checks, and gives a check, so it's a tempo, and then if the queen ever moves, the bishop can also check. So we have sacrificed an exchange now, and maybe there's like a long line now, but you might not even have so much difficulty calculating because your pieces are so active. So it's not as the one position that we had earlier where you really have to calculate very long because you have sacrificed a lot and it's unclear. Here all your pieces are really strong. And so let's have a look. What can the king do? The king can move to e6 and to d7. Those are valuable candidate moves. So let's have a look at king d7, and after queen b7, black again has a few options, but here's another technique. If the king ever moves on the 8th rank, we can give a check and win the rook, and this is an easy way for us again to eliminate a lot of variations. So what else is there? King e6 runs into rook e1, and this has to lose somehow. You don't even have to calculate much. I think black even has to sacrifice the queen now because the king cannot escape. All the squares around the king are controlled. And after king d6, bishop b4 check wins. Okay, and if after this check, black moves king e6, well, it's actually quite similar to what we had before. We get to activate all of the pieces, and this is a mate. So, sacrificing the exchange to lure the king into the center and then activating all the pieces to mate the king. Let's have a look at the next position, black to move. Okay, the motive again is that white is threatening something to take the queen, and maybe we just let white take this queen and see what happens. So let's have a look. If white would now move pawn takes queen the next move, what could we do? Well, we don't know maybe yet. So let's just calculate some move. We always want to look at checks first. So what if, by the way, what if queen takes? Okay, king takes, and what do we have here now? We suddenly have a pin on the knight. So just calculating a variation that is a forcing variation helps us understand the position a little bit. Okay, we could now take with the bishop check, but then the bishop takes, so we also have knight takes. Okay, the king moves away and we have sacrificed the queen, not gotten much, but we kind of got the idea that there might be something with this. So the move that we had in this variation was knight takes. So one candidate move naturally might be for us to look at knight takes. Okay, and what happens now if white takes out the queen, this juicy queen, which is, well, probably the candidate move for white. Well, now we can actually see that there's a mate in 2. Knight f2 double check, so the rook cannot take the knight, and also it doesn't have to put something between. Double check always means the king has to move. King g1, and we have this nice motif of mate with the bishop and the knight. So here the key was to just calculate a variation and then give up a juicy queen. You know, just because white can take the queen here doesn't mean we have some opportunities to then do something without the queen. Okay, next position, white to move. This is a very easy one. Let's have a look at this position. Okay, this is an easy mate in 2. Bishop g2 check, only move king f2 and knight to g4 check, mate. Okay, so if you didn't see this, you know, think about candidate moves and think about checks. Okay, so there are 2 checks here, so you want to consider those 2 moves. And if you look at this move, you will see that the knight controls this square, the king controls those squares, the bishop cannot be taken. So only move king f2, and then if you still don't know what to do, you know, try all the checks again and you will find that this is a mate. Okay, next position, white to move. A little bit more difficult position. Okay, what are the key elements in this position? The key elements is that the king is kind of boxed in here and this pawn is doing a good job at that. And then the other element is that on the dark squares, white has this pin, so this knight cannot move. And there's not only the bishop involved in this, but also the queen. So, what candidate moves come to mind? Well, the queen is attacked. And, you know, we quickly can see if the queen takes. We just lose the queen, and, you know, taking here doesn't have much. Okay, so moving the queen away probably is not a good idea because, you know, we were having a good play on the dark squares, and, you know, the game continues from here, but actually black is material up, so white has to do something. Taking the rook, you know, doesn't bring us much. So, you know, this seems to be a key here. So if this queen just was not there, we could take with the bishop here, and if knight takes, queen takes check, rook has to move in between and mate. So it's natural to think about ways, you know, how can we imagine this queen not being there? And then quickly you see, okay, rook c8 is a move which deflects the queen. So if the queen now takes, just to show this variation, all of this forcing moves mate. So rook c8 seems to be great, but what other opportunities does black have if not queen takes? Well, there's only one serious other move to consider. Rook takes g5, and now, you know, it makes sense to take the queen, check, and the king cannot move away. The knight is pinned here, so only move helps us to have forcing moves rook g8. And what happens now? Well, one natural move is rook takes d7, because after all this knight is pinned and cannot move. But what did this? What did white get? Well, now the material is equal again, but black is actually also threatening to take the knight. And this is the whole point. This knight is now, in the next move, white can take the knight and this material up, and black cannot really do anything. The king cannot approach because the pawn is here. The knight cannot move because it's pinned. Well, there's no check that this rook could give, so maybe the only move would be rook g6, but then we take, and because of this back rank problem, it's even mate. So maybe the best move would be something like rook f8, but then, well, any other move loses. Okay, the key here was the idea of deflecting the queen and realizing how you can exploit this pin. Okay, next position, white to move. Let's have a look at this position. Okay, that's a difficult one again. A lot of calculation. So let's have a look. candidate moves in this position. You know, there are so many candidate moves. The rook could take the knight because there's this pin. Here's this pawn which, you know, can advance. So one candidate move is to advance this pawn. You know, the queen could also take here, and then who knows what happens. There's this bishop here, right? So maybe the bishop can sacrifice itself. There is some sort of taking this pawn and attacking the queen, while at the same time this bishop might do some damage here. Okay, so the key to solving a position like this is really looking at all the candidate moves and calculating them one by one. And as you calculate, you learn more about the position. Now, I'm going to give you the right move now. The right move is queen takes h5, and after g takes, rook g5 check, and after bishop takes, h7 mate. Nice. Okay, I didn't see this at the first glance, and I would assume no grandmaster would. So in the end, you have to run through all the candidate moves. And you will find that after h7, if black took now, you have rook h5 and black loses because we have this pin here. So black cannot take, but after king h8, white doesn't find a good continuation. Okay, what other candidate moves? Queen takes, it's a check. We sacrifice the queen, but it's a check. If f takes, bishop takes the rook, bishop takes back, f6, black has everything under control. A lot of pieces are gone and black is material up. Okay, what about bishop takes? Again, f takes, queen takes check, king h8, queen takes, and queen e8 has everything under control. Okay, what about rook takes? Here the bishop can take the bishop on b2, and after h7 check, king h8, black is again material up, and everything peters out. Okay, so it's really about calculating all these candidate moves and then, you know, being able to evaluate the line like this. And maybe one technique that helps us to evaluate here is really to see that in this position here, black is material up, black is a piece up, and what white has is an attack. So if you calculate, for example, h7, king h8, one way to simplify this calculation is that, you know, with this candidate move, h7, you know, can black reach a position where white's attack peters out? So in a position like this, white has to attack and white has to find a continuation to continue attacking, otherwise you can exclude the line. And this is maybe something that can help you here in a position like this. Okay, last position, position number 10, white to move. This is a little bit easier position, nice to finish off our video. Okay, the key in this position is material is equal, but the key in this position is that this black queen is attacked by the rook. And the problem is if rook takes, white has a back rank weakness and we lose. So it really comes down to the task, how can we somehow, you know, eliminate this threat and take the queen, and ideally do so with a forcing move so that black cannot in the next move take this rook, because this rook is attacked here. Well, obviously moving the rook away, something like this, you know, material is equal and the game goes on, right? So, but we want to look for something more. And because it has to be a forcing move, well, the candidate move is clear. What happens, you know, just what happens if we give a check here? And if the king takes, which is the most natural move, what can we do? And then we will see, okay, queen g3 attacks the king and also protects the e1 square. And if the king now moves away, we can take the queen, and this rook is not a threat anymore because the queen controls the e1 square. Okay, and once we've seen this, we have to look for all other ways. So let's have a look. If if black takes and we give this check, can black do anything? No, the only way of saving the queen would be to stop the check and move the queen away, but the only square that's possible is this one, and we can take the queen, so that doesn't work. So then in this position, if the king does not take, the king has only two options, so let's have a look at them. If the king moves to f8, what can we do? We can give rook g8 check, and the king has to move. It has to take the rook now, so we force the king to its happiness by taking the rook. And now the same motive. And what if the king moves to h8? Well, let's try g8 again. If king takes, we have the same motive, but here we also have to consider rook takes. And what can we do here? We have queen c3 check, and the king cannot move anywhere. If the queen moves in between, it will be taken. If the pawn goes in between, it will be taken as well. So rook g7 is the only way, and now we can take the queen because the rook cannot move here because it is pinned by the queen. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned a lot and you were able to practice your tactical abilities as well. Thank you very much.